Turn that off. I gotta bring up this. Up here. We'll go here. There we go. Alrighty. So, good morning, everybody. Looks like we got a few people in here. So when we do that, it doesn't look too bad. It's only 11:29, so we'll wait just a minute here or so. Happy Monday to everybody. Hope everybody had a good weekend. I hope you're enjoying the rain too. I don't know what your guys' feelings are on rain, but I really like it. There we go. We got one vote for the rain. I love the rain too, all caps. I second that. Looks beautiful outside. Espeon says here, used to live somewhere where it rained all the time. Yeah, I'm from Colorado, so we got all 4 seasons when I grew up. So I like the snow, I like the rain, I like the sun. But rain's probably my favorite. St. Louis, yeah, probably rains there. Rains there more in Colorado. Rain's aight. Fine, I'll take that. All right, guys, it's 11:31. I assume you guys can hear me okay. I can see myself here on the screen. We got the chat working. I also, and I'll just double check this right now so I don't mess anything up, but this VOD should save. I'll just quickly check that to make sure. Channels and videos. Say I store past broadcasts. Okay, so this video that we're doing today will go up on YouTube right afterwards. I did upload 5 videos. So for those of you that didn't see, let me pull it up here. Whoop. So I just put all these videos here. You probably don't have to watch that syllabus one. If you want to get a good handle on what assignment 1 looks like, you can just probably take this link here, bring it into YouTube, and you should be there at my channel. Yep.
Hello, and welcome to this short walkthrough.
And I'm sure I made a few
assignment
mistakes,
one,
but I did watch it back over and things look good. So all you have to do is go here, and all the videos will be saved here. And I have a playlist as well for this spring 2021. And then I'll just quickly say, for those of you who don't want to use Sally and Bobby all the time,
Section 1011.
I made these two videos, one about VirtualBox.
University of Nevada, Las Vegas course.
It doesn't look like I added the other one to this list, so I will do that.
Mr. James Petrowski. You may.
But I also added a video about we will have Visual Studio, so you can use either one of these softwares if you'd like. This video is 30 minutes long, but only because I didn't like cut out the loading time. So I like straight up just installed Ubuntu on my VirtualBox and like waited for it. So you can just skip ahead for most of this video. Anyway, moving on from that, today we're going to kind of maybe not speed through this, but we're going to at least finish up this program that's going to help you finish up assignment 1. I did explain this, and it is in that YouTube video, at least in one of the Structs and Vectors YouTube video, where I talk about this swimming thing. So hopefully you all know just kind of what we're talking about here. We're just going to be reading in some columns and some rows. We're going to be storing them into a vector, and I'm going to write some functions that will help us work with assignment 1. So, I've done this already, and I have notes on the right-hand side, so chances are I'll make some mistakes because I'm like everybody else. But I did get this working, so I have something to reference, and we probably won't get hung up too much. I hope to ask you guys some questions as we go through this, just to help everyone remember how C++ works. So feel free to type in the chat. I'd really appreciate it. And so we'll get started here. I typed out a skeleton code already, and so let me just kind of walk you through what's going on here. And this is similar to your assignment 1. Here we have the fstream library, which is for file handling, right? So to open and close files, we're going to want to use this fstream library, which stands for file stream. We have the string library. Darian asks, will you be uploading this code? Yes. So everything we type out today, it goes here. Oops. And I'll even show you. If you come to the course files and click on class code, I even put the code from last class, including the notes that we typed. So every code and all the notes I type out will always go on Web Campus right here for you to find and reference. So we're using the string library here. The reason we're using that is because there's a fancy little function in there called getLine, which is a nice function when it comes to file handling. Vectors, we already talked about. This is how we implement our dynamic array, right? Which means the array is resizable. Which also means we don't know how big the array will be right off the bat. And then lastly, we always need our IOStream library. Now, we talked about this last class. This is a struct that we developed. These are called, I guess we'll call them fields. So this is the name field, the distance field, the stroke field, the metric field. And all of these things correspond to a column that's in this CSV file here. So we got the name, the distance, the stroke, the metric. Is this long course or short course? Is it men or women? And what's the world record? So we've got all of those columns listed. And then I kind of put some functions here. And so we're going to talk about these one by one, but these are just the prototypes. So hopefully you remember from CS 135 that if we want to type the function definitions down below, let me just zoom out here so you can kind of see it in small. Where here up top, I include all of the prototypes. This is what we call these, function prototypes. And then down here below main, we'll put all of these definitions. quickly, I'll just distract you all. I'll show you hello, or I'll show you my cat Loaf. You can say hi, and then she's going to get the heck out of here because she's getting annoyed with my talking. So we're working with 8 functions today. And we're going to kind of go in order that I think you should with the assignment. So let me go ahead and zoom in here. And we'll go ahead and start here with the first thing that we need to do is open up this file, right? So we need to find a way to open up this file and start reading in these lines. And so if I'm looking at these functions here, I see this function here called bool open file. So let's go ahead and start with this. This is similar to a function in your assignment 1. So I'll come down here to open file. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to put a little descriptor up top, and we'll say this function will open the file. We'll open a file. How about that? Now, this parameter is an if stream. And if you recall, that stands for something like in file stream. Now, can anyone tell me what this little ampersand means? And why it might be important for a function like this? Yeah, so 3 of you got that. That's completely correct. This is a pass-by reference. And I don't know if I showed this GIF. I probably said it wrong. But I will upload this little GIF. This was not created by me by any means. Let me see if I can zoom in here just a little bit. It doesn't look like I can, which is really lame. Yeah, let's try that. But hopefully you can see this okay. I know it's a little tiny. Oh, I should be able to zoom in. Here's what we'll do instead. We're going to use good old Internet Explorer here. And I should be able to just drag this in here. Here we go. Nice. So now it's big. So this is all the pass-by reference and the pass-by value means. So if we have a cup in the pass-by reference, and if we pass this cup to this fill cup function and it fills up the cup, it's going to fill up the original one too, which means that these two are exactly the same. And in pass-by value, and that's where we don't have the and sign, so it's like that, we'll be creating a copy of it. And then the cup won't get filled, at least the original one. And so we can see that here in this little silly GIF. And so if this is coming in by value, this means that we'll be passing in some file. So let's come up here to int main. And so we're going to need some file. So let's go ahead and declare it, and we'll call it the in file. And then we're going to open this file. Now, in both the assignment and here, notice that this is going to be a bool type. So it's either going to return true or false. So let's go ahead and do this. This is a nice, safe way for us where we can open the file using the if statement. And we're going to pass this in file by reference. And if this function happens to return true, then we can safely read from the file in here. Because we know for a fact that it's open. But if this file happens to return false, then we're just going to skip over this whole if statement. So we know that this open file is going to return true. So here's what we'll do. The first thing we should do is ask our user for a file name. So the first thing that we should do is declare a string. I don't need to have a comment there. And then we should probably ask our user for the file name. And you'll notice that in the assignment output, you'll see that you can type kind of Q to quit. So we'll include that here as well. So we'll type that out. And then we're going to read in to the file name. That's what our cin does. Let me put a little comment here saying and actually we're going to put a little while loop here. I'll show you here. So let's go ahead and initialize this file name to be empty string. And then we'll just do while file name does not equal, and I said Q to quit, right? So if the file name is equal to Q, then we'll go ahead and just exit out of here. And it's a string, so we have to use double quotes, not single quotes. So while our file name is not equal to this quit, we'll go ahead and ask the user for what our file name is. Then we'll go ahead and read it in. And then what we're going to try to do is open this file. So I'm actually going to change this up just a little bit, just for efficiency. Because what if they type Q right away? Then we don't want to try to open it. So before we enter our while loop here, we'll just read it in. If it's not equal to Q, then we don't have to do this yet. And we'll try to open that. So the first thing we'll do is open file. In which this happens, we got to take this in file parameter up here, right? That's our file thing. Krevin asks, can you do this in a do while loop? Yes, it could. Obviously, I'm not doing this the most efficiently. And in fact, the way I would do it is probably, let me ask you this. Are you guys familiar with break statements? And if so, I guess we might as well introduce that. Do while is completely 100% okay. So let me show, yeah, I see quite a few here in the break. Let me show you how a break would work in this case. So here I just kind of start an infinite loop. And let me kind of bring out the notes here because we'll need to do that. So what is today? Today is 2021-01-25. And so we'll just put the break statement here. And what does this mean? This will, I guess the term is break. But we'll say go to the very end of the nearest loop. This loop can be a for, a while, a do while, etc. So this will just go to the end, and it will break out. So I'll show you how we can do that here. So instead, I'll just start some infinite loop here, and then we'll just continuously do this code until we break, or return. So we're going to open our file here, in file.open. Now what are we opening? We're going to open this file name that we need. So first we got to ask for it. And then we'll go ahead and open that file name. And now we got to check to see if the file opened. So there's an easy way to do this. We'll just say if infile.isOpen. And while we're here in the notes, we'll go ahead and kind of bring a little file review down here. So we got if stream in file for an in stream. We've got in file dot open some file name. So this function opens a file. We've got in file dot is open, which excuse me. If the file is open, returns true. Else false. So far, and then let's also talk about one thing in file dot close. That one's pretty straightforward. This closes our file. Now, many of you may forget this one. This one is not the most important, but you may have experienced before when you try to like move, drag and drop a file from some folder. And it says, Windows says, hey, I can't do this because this file is open in some program. If you never close your file in your program, then your program will endlessly grab hold of whatever this file is, and then you'll never be able to do anything with it until the program terminates or until you close the file. So it's always good to remember to do this. So we'll check to see if that file is open. And if it's true, then we'll say file opened successfully. File successfully. Just like that. And then we can return true. Now say this is kind of like a break. But it returns instead, right? So the truth here is we call this function and then we start an infinite loop and then we return. So in fact, this loop is safe and it will be okay and will not infinitely loop because we're going to return back out of here. Now, if that file didn't open, we can do one of two things. We could break out and return false. So let's say file did not open. We could break, where you just type break, and it will come down here. And it will break out of this while loop here, right? The break breaks out of the very nearest loop, which is this while loop. And then we'll just return false. But instead, how about we just prompt the user to ask again? Actually, let's do one of two things. Let's check for either a queue and let's check to see if the file didn't open. So else, and then let's do another if here. Well, we want to do a few things here. Let's go ahead and check to see if this queue happened first. I completely forgot that, but let's do it. So here's a good example of break. We can just say if file name is equal to queue, then we'll break out. File name equals queue, let's break this loop, and then let's return false. I could also just put return false in here. But just because we're learning what break does, let's keep it in here. So if file is equal to queue, we'll break. Else, we'll try to open up this file, or we'll continue on. We'll check to see if that file is open. And if it's not open, then it's going to skip over this whole if statement. And then it's going to come back up to this while loop, and it will just ask again. So let's go ahead and test this function in Sally to make sure that things are working as we intended. And I'm just going to put my infile.close down here because I want to remember to get rid of it when I'm done. And of all the functions that we did, we only did open files. So just to keep the compiler happy, I'm going to comment out all of these ones that I'm not interested in. We're just going to try to test how to open this file. We're going to try to open it, and then we're going to close it. Here we can have a reminder on how to load things onto Sally. I know a few of you had a problem connecting to Sally using the old SSH client. If you did, I would recommend downloading MOBA or PuTTY. Here we'll go to Sally. And I got access denied. Sometimes that will happen. So I'll try one more time. And it will probably tell me access denied again. So we're going to try Bobby instead because Sally's having a little bit of a fit right now. But the IT team is always working to try to keep these servers up. So if you just can't get into Sally, wait a little bit. And come on over to Cardiac or Bobby. And I gotta type this Zoom thing 20 times. And that's probably a good size. So we'll clear. And I would like to find a directory for this. So I'll come here to my test directory. I'm gonna clear everything out. And the first thing I have to do is change my directory to this test directory. Once I'm in there, you'll see that the test is kind of here. Guess I could zoom in a little more. You can see that it says it's right there. And when I type ls, I can look for everything in that directory. Right now, there's nothing there. So let's come over to wherever you saved your code. I saved mine right here. And I just saved it a minute ago. And it's this file that we're talking about. So I'm going to drag it over into here. And then also, I need my file that is going to be opened, right? So I actually have this from my last class. So I'm going to drag over this file onto Bobby as well. So once the files are in there, I can type ls. And notice that I see I've got this file, which is my CPP file, and I've got my CSV file. So I'll go ahead and type clear, and we'll try to compile this code, which is g++-std equals C++11. And then we'll type 2021-01-15.cpp. Maybe it's not 15, but it's 25. And let's see if I get any compiler errors. It looks like the code we typed was good. So I'll just /a.out. And here we go, right? So let's just look at the code. The first thing I did in main was I declared an in file, and I said if open file. We called this function. And then now we're in this while loop here, and it says, what is that file name? And so right now it's waiting for me to input something. If I type Q here, it's going to break out. It's going to break out of this loop and return false, so we can test that. I'll just type Q. And you notice that it exited. So let's try one more time. And let's try to open up this swimming events.csv. Look, it says file opened successfully. So we were able to open it, and everything was good. Now we'll try one more thing. If I run this code and I type in a bad file, such as badfile.glurg or something, notice that it asks me again. And the reason it did that was because it tried to open it. It did not succeed. So this did not evaluate to true, and then it just came right back up to the start of the while loop. So this should all be review. Are there any questions on this open file function? Please let me know. Just type it in the chat, and we'll move on here to our next one, because it looks like that this one is going very well. So the next thing that we're probably going to have to do, if we look at our files here, is we got to read in from the file now, right? So let's go ahead and do that. Now the functions for that, there's quite a few of them. And in general, I would say you're welcome to do this how you would like. Though since in assignment 1 you are not, we're using these three functions here. So Costantan asks, return in this situation just acts as a break because the loop is based on bool. Yeah, we can talk about that. So you know that usually in your while loops, you type something like, you know, if file name, for example, like I had done, like does not equal Q. This is what's called a Boolean statement, right? So this, whatever this is, it evaluates to either true or false. And that's what we call a bool. And so in fact, if I put, you see, the thing about this one is it needs to be evaluated because file name might not be equal to Q. Or it might be equal to Q. But if I just type true, then this, I mean, it's kind of just exactly what it looks like. It says while true. So I literally just create an infinite loop. But the thing we have to make sure is that we break out of it somehow. And so here I say if file name equals Q, then we'll break out. And then we can return false down here. But here, if I say if the file is open, then we have no more work to do, right? So if I return true, it's going to return back to main. Do you know what I mean? It's going to return back to main. And the execution of this program completely stops. So the return kind of acts like a break in a way. Except that in this case, the function will return. And in this case, the while loop will be broken out of. So as soon as it hits this break, it comes all the way down to the bottom. And then I have this extra return false, which returns from the function. We should always be returning from our function somewhere. So hopefully that makes sense. If you come across a return in general, it ends the function because that's how the bool function works. That's how we typed the function to work, yes. So, I mean, I came up with this one, right? Or maybe you guys helped me a little bit. So I coded it this way, but return is just always going to end, yeah. So even if I did this, if I didn't have this function and I just typed return false, this function will be called and then it will immediately return false, and none of this code down here will be executed. Red Rosenrot gets it. You can keep typing away if you're still confused, but hopefully that was able to clear some stuff up. And we'll be using plenty of breaks as we come on, as we move into the next few weeks here. So we were just talking about these files, and these three not files, functions. These three functions are all in your assignment. So let's pay attention to this stuff. And let's do some read file stuff. And let me go ahead and just type some things. So this getNext field, what this function does is it takes a line, I'll say a CSV line. And so I'll copy one of those in here. For example, like this line here, and we'll make it a string. And it returns the next value, depending on the index. So if the index happens to be 0, it's going to return men's 100 meter free. If this index happens to be, I'll have to count 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So if this index happens to be number 12, it will return 100. If the index is greater than that, it will return freestyle. And then it will return meters. And then it will return true. And then it will return men, etc. Actually, it won't return it. That's my mistake. It stores my mistake. It stores next value in substring, right? Because we passed that by value. And then we'll say if it successfully grabbed a string, then return true, else false. Save field's a little easier than that, in which it takes in, let's see what it takes in here. It takes in some file, or no, my bad. It takes in some index, it takes in some string, and it takes in a swimming event. And notice that this is coming in by reference. So it takes in a val and a column index. This is the column index. And what does it do? What does it do? It stores the val into the event. So for example, if this, you notice that int distance here, its index here is 1. It's number 1 column. This is the number 0 column. This is the number 1 column. If this function, save field, takes in a 1, it will store whatever this value is into this event at the distance location. And then read file uses both save field and get next field. And it returns the number of lines that it read from the file. And it stores all the swimming events into, and I'll just put it in quotes because it's a parameter, into that guy where my face is, where you can't even see it, right here. So let's get started, and let's just start typing up the code here. Since we've broken this up, it's going to be pretty easy. So let's go ahead and start with get next field, and I'm going to copy this little comment that I made. And we'll come down here and find wherever get next field is. It looks like it's right here. And I'll bring this in as a comment just so we can kind of look at what's going on here, right? And even, this is what you should do in your assignment. Come up here and just copy this as well. And bring it in here just so you can reference it. See what types they are and everything like that. So the string coming in is going to be this, right? This is our record. The index coming in is going to be one of these guys. And then the substring is where we're going to store it. So let's review our switch statement here. Has anyone seen a switch statement before? I'm liking what I'm seeing. Very nice. So switch statements are kind of like switch is kind of for if else, right? In which we have multiple cases, right? So whatever goes in the switch, there's some variable. This is actually the case. Case C, and then down in here we'll say if, you know, let's say it's an integer, then we'll say case 1, we'll put a colon, and then we can put some brackets here, and then in here was some code. And this means if C is equal to 1. And then in the next one, we'll put case 2. We'll say if C is equal to 2. So So that's kind of how the switches work. And you should probably break out at the end of these. Because if you don't, and I'll put here in a comment, if we don't break, we'll continue checking all the remaining cases. So hopefully that makes sense, right? If I don't put a break here, it'll go check to see if C is now equal to 2, to see if there's any other cases that evaluate to be true. So let's go ahead and do a switch statement, right? Does anyone know in this function what we're going to be switching on? I'll just go ahead and put my switch here, and I'll open it up, and we'll put some cases. Yeah, so we got 2 people here, Red Rosenrod and Seabay. Yeah, we're switching on this index here. That's exactly right. So we'll put that index here. And so we can put exactly these numbers here, right? So let's go ahead and say case 0. And I'm just going to kind of copy paste these guys. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I should have put my breaks in here, but we won't do that quite yet. So there we have our switch statement. And so if we look in here, then we know which one we're storing into, right? So in fact, if we have index 0, we're going to store into the name. Oh, I'm in the wrong function, folks. Whoops. Wait, no, well, okay. Now, you see, now I got confused a little bit. My mistake, guys. If we're in the save field, then we'll take in this index in this value. I'm sorry that I got mixed up there. We'll come back to the get next field in just a moment because save field is just as easy, and we were going off on it here. So it just takes in some column index and it will store the value in here, right? So if we are on the 0th column, which will be the men's 100-meter free, then we can say event. We're not going to scream it. Event dot. Now, I have all my options here because of IntelliSense, right? But that's event name. And that's going to go, the value, whichever comes in, is going to go into the name, right? So we'll store this value into the name. And then let's break out of our case. Now, this may look better this way. This might be how you type it, and that's totally okay. But because there's so many cases, I kind of just like to condense things up here a little bit. And so though it's not following that format I said exactly, it's nice and organized. So the rest of this should be pretty straightforward if I just copy paste all of this stuff in here, right? But now I'm going to take the distance next. I'm going to take the stroke next. I'm going to take the metric. Now, is there any problems that you guys notice at all? I know that's kind of a broad question, so I won't blame anyone if you don't know what I'm talking about. But if I just copy paste all this stuff in here, are there any issues? Right. Red Rosenrot's on top of it. We got to do some sort of conversion here, right? Because the distance is an integer. The bool is a long course. Or the long course is a bool, and the world record is a float. So the distance, I'll just tell you guys what these ones are. But let's go ahead and put it in our notes. So we talked about our break. We talked about our switch. Also works for case statements. Which it breaks out of switch. And we talked about our switch. Let's talk about some string conversions. I'm just going to make some pretty things here. Switch, string conversion. So we've got STOF. I kind of put these in your hints already. We've got STOD. So Peter asks, do we need a default? And that's good. I'm happy that you brought that up. Because sometimes we need it, but not always. So this default will execute if there's no break before it, rather. So if we put a default in here, and we can do it, we can say something like an error message, right? Let's say cout incorrect index. But in a sense, if the index is not correct, then I don't want to store anything into this event anyway. So if there is no default and all of these cases evaluate to false, then we're just going to be done with the function anyway. But I am glad that you added that, and I'll just put here optional. And we won't have to break out of this one because it will continue past the very next case is here. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this because I've kind of memorized it. And let's come back to our notes, in which this one is string to float. This one is string to double. STOI is string to int. And then lastly, we're going to do this one. Let's say we have string. We don't need that. We'll just put this instead. To string. And this function converts a non-string to a string, such as an int or a float. So here we've got our string conversion functions. Let's go ahead and use some of them. So the distance is going to be STOI, right? Because the distance is an integer. We can check that by looking here. We know that long course, that one is a little hard, but we'll have fun with that. And I'm missing something here. I kind of messed up. One of these should be men, women. I think we called it MW. Oh, sex and world record. My mistake. All right, there we go. The world record is going to be an STOF, right? String to float. Now, did I say this was a string or character? This is going to be a string for now, so that's totally fine. And now let's look at this one. Do you guys know what a ternary is? This one's a fun one. Ternaries are a little advanced, maybe. But we're going to use it because we're here to learn C++. So let's imagine I have this code where I say if Boolean statement and then I'll put code, we'll just put it like this, code A, else I actually got to fix this. Let's say int x is equal to 0. And we'll say if I would prefer to give you a better hardcore example. So let's just do car C. Let's C in to that C. And let's imagine that this will either be a yes or a no. So let's say we have some in x, we have some character C. If we read into the C either a y or an n, we might say something like this. If C is equal to y, then we can say int x, x is equal to 1. And then we'll say else x is equal to -1. Where this is kind of like C does not equal n. So we can replace that with this. So we'll have our character, we'll read it in, and then we can say int x is equal to, now I put some parentheses here, and I'll say C equals y, question mark, 1, colon, -1. So what this is here is this is an if statement where it says if C is equal to y, this is the true and this is the else. So we say if C is equal to y, this will be 1, and if it's not, this will be -1. So if we were going to do that in the long course one, let's go ahead and break this one out. Can anyone type out? I'll give you the if statement, and let's see if you can type out what the ternary statement would be. Red Rosenrod asks, does it work for multiple statements? The answer is no. But in a way, you could do it like this. This is where it gets complicated. You could nest some ternaries into other ternaries. Do you know what I mean by that? So this might be kind of a silly statement, but I've got two ternaries nested within a ternary. So you can make it work for multiple statements, but that's a little above and beyond. Though you're totally welcome to. So here's what I'll say. If this val is equal to true, it's either true or false, then we'll say this. Else, false, right? So we are kind of moving along here on the time. So let me just do the ternary for fun. And it's not going to be val. Yeah, no it is. So the ternary, we'll just put it kind of in a comment here, but we'll say something like event.long course is equal to, I do my parentheses, and I'll take this statement here, put it there. I'll put my question mark. Oh, here we go. Red Rosenrock got it mostly correct. Yeah, you got it quite spot on there. So nice job on that. It's no worries. I know you're probably rushing for time there. I don't blame you at all. So we'll check for this. And so then we'll either do true or false. So if this evaluates to be this string, then it will return true. Else, if this is false, then it will return false. And then whatever that is will be stored in to this value here. So that's the ternary. Since you guys might not be so familiar with it, we'll just leave it there in a comment for you. And you can give it a shot in your program if you'd like. I'm not sure if you'll have to use one. But there we have it. And that is a save field function. Kosentan asks, can you explain what the question mark does? The question mark is just syntax. So if we were to look at a ternary statement, we're going to have the Boolean statement here. And then this question mark just separates the cases. So then we're going to be the true result here or the false result here. So in a way, the question mark doesn't do anything. It just separates the Boolean statement from these statements. Yeah. In fact, it's kind of, I should have written it like this initially. Now, I'll ask you this. Do we have to return from a void function? Seabay got it? No, we don't. So we'll just switch on this index. We'll store the value into the event, and then we will just be done. It will come down here. This is the end. There's no return, so it will just return automatically. You can type this. This is completely okay. You can type return. But the only case that you want to do that is if you were to do it somewhere where you're like checking some case, right? So we could do this instead. We could say if index happens to be greater than 6, right? So this case 6 here, we know that there's no such column. We would put a return here, and then the void function would just return nothing. But we don't have to have a return statement necessarily. So let's do our get next field one. These are the most important ones, and we got to try to get this done. I know I like to talk a lot. So let's see what we can do. So I already explained what this one does. And it's going to take one of these things and store it in the substring. So here's what we'll check first. This is the index, right? So the index will be located at M, at number 1 here, at the F, at the M, at the T, at the M, at the 4, or it will be greater than the string size. Do you guys remember how to get the length of a string? Yep, Seabay got that. So if the index is bigger than string length, if the index is bigger than the string length, we probably don't want to try to index it, right? So the record here is this thing that I'm highlighting here. So we'll say if the index is greater than string.length, and it is a function, so you got it, but we do have to include these parentheses here. And we can say also, or if the index is less than 0, then let's just return false. To say, hey, there's nothing in this substring. I was not able to grab anything out of, sorry, I made a mistake. It's the record. I was not able to grab anything out of this record because the index happened to be too big. Else, now what we want to do is we want to kind of extract this string out of the bigger string. So hopefully you guys can kind of follow along here. I like to call, this is how I do things like this. I like to make a builder string. And I like to set my builder string equal to empty string at first. Now, what is separating the values in here? It's a comma, right? So if I come across a comma, I don't want to save it. If I come across a comma, I don't want to save it. So here's what I'll do. I'll say while. Let's do a while loop where we're going to kind of go one by one. So we'll take this M, we'll take this E, we'll take this N, the 1, the 0, the M, the F, the R, the E, and then we'll hit a comma, and then we'll break out of our loop. So let's say while the record located at our index does not equal a comma. And let's check for one more thing. While the index is less than the string length, right? Because there's another case here. What happens if we're at the very end of this string? Right? I'll go, there's a 4, there's a 6, there's a period, there's a 9, there's a 1, and then the string's over. And we'll get a segmentation fault, or we'll get garbage. So I need to look for commas, and I need to look for length. So if that happens to work like that, where our character is not a comma and the index is still less than the record's length, let's go ahead and store this character. Does this statement confuse anybody? Please let me know right now if it does. If I need to explain. I mean, I will kind of anyway, but what this does is it adds a character to the end of the B string, right? Where this plus sign is concatenation. Called concatenation, probably. Concatenation. There we go. Let me go ahead and do this. String.length. This is the length of our string. And that plus sign, that's okay. So Jan Boy asks, what is the builder string for again? So we have this big string here, right? We have this big string, and all I want to do is get one of these little ones out. So after we're done with our little while loop, the builder string will kind of look like this. Let's say we're doing the men equals 100 freestyle. The builder string will go like this. It will go M. Let me do it like this instead. It'll go M, E, and then M, M-E-N, and then M-E-N 1, and then M-E-N 1, 0, and then M-E-N 1, 0, 0. In which we're kind of building on this string. Yeah, we could use getLine. And in fact, if you know how to do that, I will let you do it. T. Peter's talking about this thing here where we can say getLine. And we... So you would have to use a string stream for that. But if you have a file and you have some string, and then you can put some character here, and it will only grab up until it sees this character. If you know how to do that, go ahead. But I like to be basic. So Jan Boy, does this kind of make sense? A little bit about what I'm doing here? Where it will be empty at first, and then just one by one, we're going to put characters onto the end of this string. Meter, F, etc. Okay. Thank you for asking questions. So that's what we're doing here. If I put this comment here even, it's probably best. So we'll just add it on there, right? And then let's go ahead and increment our index. If you're smart, you probably know that we can put the plus plus in there, but we're going to keep things simple for now. And so that's actually the code. So we're just going to kind of build it up here until we get to that free. And then we're going to hit that comma, and then we'll be done. And then once we're finished with that, we can go ahead and store the builder string into the substring. Right? This is where we're going to put it. And then we'll return true. Right? Because we successfully grabbed. It successfully grabs a string, which we did. Let's return true. And let me put this here. It's bothering me. But if it's greater than and it doesn't grab anything because the index is too big, then we'll return false. And we stored it in the substring, and so that's that. And so we finished that function. And so now we're going to quickly do the read file. We don't need this one. We already did that one. And this one will be kind of easy since we did the other two, right? So since we did this one and we did this one, we're going to go ahead and just read file. So in the read file, we're going to already assume that our in file is already open. And we're going to assume that this vector is empty. So here's what we'll do. In files, we use the get line, right? I probably didn't put that here. This is also, so this comes with the string library. Let me check my notes here. And what this is it's called getLine, and it will take the in file and it will take a string. And what it does is it stores the line into a string. So that's all it does. And so since we have our file here, let's go ahead and make a string temporary, a temp string. And we're going to be reading from this file, right? I don't want this header file. You'll have to change this in this code because if you're doing the assignment, this header is not included. But I'll grab the first line here from the in file and store it into temp. And this is the header line. And then we'll put our while loop and we'll say while get line in file temp means read a line from the file. Then we should do another loop. This loop will be get next field. So we'll say while get next field. Now we're going to need to pass a few things to this get next field function. If we look at it, we're going to need to pass a record, an index, and a substring. So let's make some of our things. Let's say index. Let's put it here. Let's make a temporary substring. And we already stored this line into temp. So we're going to pass temp as the record. We're going to pass index as the index. And we're going to pass substring as the substring. And so while this function that we wrote is going to be pulling things out, right? Kind of like this. It will then store whatever that value is into the substring. And then we want to save the field, right? So we're also going to need a swimming event, temp event, and then we'll call our save field function. What does our save field function take? It takes an index, a string, and a value. You see here I'm kind of throwing a bunch of stuff in here, but this index is going to be for getNext field. This one will be for save field. This is our column. Maybe I'll put it that instead. And so what we'll save the field here, we'll put in the column index. And then we got to pass in the value, which was stored in the substring. And then we got to pass in the event, which is our temp event. There's one thing I forgot here. Once we've... that's okay. Let's not do that. So once we save that column index, we can probably increment the column index, since we just saved it in there. So what happens here, we're going to save all fields into the struct. And then now struct is saved. So let's go ahead and put it in the vector. Does anyone remember what the function is to put something in a vector? Which we have it here, our events vector. Yep, both of you got it there. So we'll put push back. And we're going to push in this temp event here. Now we read a line. So let's make an int up here, line count equals 0. And since we successfully pushed something in there, well, let's not do it this way. Let's do it a better way. Once all lines have finished, let's actually just return the events.size, right? Because however many events we pushed into this, then that'll be how many lines that we read in. So we've only got 5 minutes left. I'm not going to be able to cover, let's see, these 3 functions. I will upload them and give them to you, but we'll move on from next class. These are pretty straightforward. What we are going to do is we're going to run this code just so we can make sure that things are working. So this is your main, and in assignment 1 this is given to you. But the first thing we'll need is a vector of swimming events. Call them the events. And so the next thing that we need to do is if we've opened the file, we need to read the file. So in main, it's going to look super pretty. We'll just say read file. And we're going to pass it the in file, and we're going to pass it the events. Now read file returns an int, so we'll put int lines read is equal to this. And then we'll print out lines is equal to lines read. And then I'll do a little for loop here, and then we'll close up for the day. So we'll say for int I is equal to 0. I is less than, and I went over this last time. To get the number of indexes in a vector, we'll just put for the events and the size, right? For I is less than all of our events. And just to check to see if we successfully read everything in, let's go ahead and see out index. And we'll put I, and we'll say what events in here, put an arrow, and we'll say that this is events located at index I, and let's go ahead and just print the event name. Do an end line. Okay. So most likely I made a mistake. I'm just warning you now. I know that was a lot. This class is going to slow back down. I'm kind of cramming this a little bit because it is a review. And I'm just kind of, trying to jam this in here so you guys have a nice reference and so you're not going to be drowning right off the bat. On Thursday, things will be slower and simpler and easier to digest. I promise that. But for now, let's just make sure this program works. And hopefully you'll be able to go off to the races with your assignment ones. So let's see if I got a compiler error, which I did. And it says my switch is not correct. So if I come down to my switch, I will see that I'm switching on this index, and it's not named that. Yes, Cosentan is right. Wednesday is when I'll see you next. The last time I taught this class, it was Tuesday, Thursday. So I'm going to have to rewire my brain. All right, so we should be good here, hopefully. Everything compiled, so let's see if we successfully were able to read in from here. So what's our file name? It's swimming events. And we got an issue here. We've only got 1 minute left, but let me just see if I can figure out what's going on. So it's not in there. So I'm going to stay extra. You don't have to go. I'm sorry that it did happen to be like this, but I'll just debug this quickly. If you have the time to stay, then please do. Or come back to the stream later and watch it. But what my program is complaining about is it says that STOI was on an invalid argument. So we called STOI here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to see out whatever it is to see what it is. And perhaps I will see exactly what my problem is. Hopefully. Oh, I'm a little scatterbrained. So it was empty. Let me check my notes here. And we'll see how I did it in this one. Substring equals builder string. And so then it's probably in getNext field here, in which we pull in the temp line. Oh, you know what happened, I bet? Well, we're running out of time here. So, how's this? I'm going to end the stream. I will tell you what happened, and I'll post screenshots in the Discord. I'm checking my notes, and things are looking okay here, so I just have a small, minor error. The code that I upload to Web Campus will work. I promise that. So please get started on your assignments, ask questions. Whatever I upload today, it will work. I will tell you exactly of the code that we typed today, what happened. And that's that. So thanks for bearing with me today. I'll see you guys on Wednesday, where we're going to start RCS 202 material. And it will be less hectic than this, and we'll have some simple examples, and it will be a good time. Office hours are in about 12 minutes, so I'll be in there if you guys want to come chat. In the meantime, I'm just going to work on this. Thanks, guys. So... if our index does not equal that, and let's do it this way. Okay, so the builder string worked just fine. And so then I say that the substring here is equal to this builder string, so that's fine. And so then in the read file, I get this line. I store it into this string. I call this a substring. I call getNextField with the record. It stores the substring, and then I call saveField, which passes this substring. But for some reason, it does not want to pass it. So there's that one. The distance, did I mess something up here? No, it should be okay. Oh, I know what happened. There might be still some people here. I know exactly what happened. If you're still here, then I'm glad you are. I'm still going to post this in the Discord. But it's kind of a hard one to see. I don't actually increment the index after this. So the index is stuck on this comma. That's what's happening. The index is stuck on this comma. And because it is, the next time we call this function, this while loop never executes. So in fact, if I say index plus plus right here, we should altogether fix this. So hopefully we'll get it to work. I'll post it in the Discord, and we will finally move on from this nightmare. Oh, hooray, we did it. We made it. We read 30 lines. Is that what happened? At least this will be saved in the stream. We read 30 lines. Are there 30 lines? There are 31, including the header, so that's correct. And if we look at it, we've got all of the events. So we did it. I'll post that in the Discord. Thanks for coming to the stream. I'll see you guys later.